horrible. I'm not going to let you do it.
No, I'm going to do it.
Stop with this crap.
So what's your take?
I think women should stop wearing bras.
You can try all you
Rich,
You gotta
Reagan
get the
was
statistics
awesome. And if
right.
you
Will you shut up, man?
What about winning championships?
Somewhere along the way, everything started to sound like this. Not just sports, everything. Politics, culture, even the way we talk to each other. So how did this happen? I saw the rise of this culture happen firsthand as someone on one of these ESPN debate shows. I've sat across from Stephen A. Smith on live television. I felt what the machine does to you when you're inside it. So I want to take you inside the history of how this started, inside the conversations that you have with producers before the show, and inside what it feels like to be a person with something to say and watches the format decide what comes out the other side. Because the rise and explosion of hot takes reveals a lot about how we arrived in this world and in this moment in history. And to understand how we got here, we have to go back further than the beginning of ESPN, further than the history of sports television, further than the history of sports radio. In the early 1900s, sports were becoming something new in American life. Sports were no longer just a way to get some exercise in, but becoming a pastime that people shared. Baseball was the national religion, boxing filled arenas, college football was important viewing for entire cities. Americans needed a place to process all of it, and that somewhere was the sports section. Newspapers understood early that sports fans were a specific and valuable audience, often the most popular section in the newspaper. Sports journalism always helped make fans, but it also helped those who sold newspapers extremely wealthy. Nobody did that better than Grantland Rice. Rice believed his job wasn't just to recount what happened, but to craft a story that aligned with how sports ought to be celebrated in American culture. People not only read Rice, but talked about what he wrote, argued about it. The sports section was where American public argument about sports learned to live. But it was regional. A great take in New York stayed in New York. The argument was local. Radio changed everything. For the first time in the history of sports arguments, opinions didn't have to wait until the morning. They were live and immediate. And while the newspaper column was a monologue at you, radio invented the conversation. By the 1970s and into the 1980s, the format was everywhere, and it was getting louder, more provocative, more willing to say the thing that makes you call in furious and keep your radio on. And then someone said the quiet part out loud. Tom Bigby, the programming manager at WIP in Philadelphia, gave an interview that essentially wrote the operating manual for everything that came after. His philosophy was simple and ruthless. Radio first, sports second. If you do sports talk, it won't survive. If you do sports entertainment, the possibilities are endless. The product was never just information. The product was engagement. Sports was just the raw material you fed into the machine to generate it. Gossipy entertainment and outrage was valued over factual information. There was the amplification of the loudest voices. Sports radio had discovered something that it would take another decade for television to discover. It wasn't about having the best information possible. It was about what started the best arguments, the best conversations, what caused people to pick up the phone and call the radio station. But in the 1980s into the 1990s, all of this dynamic was still local, but all of that was about to change. For cable, sports fandom was still local and siloed. There was no such thing as a national sports conversation because there was no infrastructure to carry one. ESPN changed that. When ESPN launched in 1979, it seemed like a novelty, a 24-hour sports network. What could they possibly fill that time with? But what ESPN actually built was a shared national experience around sports. For the first time, a fan in Atlanta and a fan in Seattle and a fan in Boston were all watching the same highlights, hearing the same voices, and processing the same sports news simultaneously. It gave sports a national stage. Opinion existed at the edges of the network, but it was civil, it wasn't confrontational. And then in 1988, ESPN launched the Sports Reporters. It was a 30-minute serious and thoughtful conversation about sports. The Sports Reporters planted a seed, but it didn't ignite anything. The format was too restrained and too committed to nuance at a moment when the audience, trained by sports radio, was starting to want something with more heat. That heat arrived in 2001.
Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon, and welcome to opening day in this bizarre television experiment.
And I'm Tony Kornheiser, and if we can have a TV show, you can have a TV show.
Pardon the Interruption premiered on ESPN with two former Washington Post columnists, Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon, who had spent years as bickering colleagues and loud friends. When Pardon the Interruption premiered in 2001, it took a piece of the sports reporters, but focused on the conflict. Creators Jim Cohen and Eric Rydholm wanted to bring Kornheiser and Wilbon's argumentative real-life chemistry to the entire nation. Rydholm cites the sports reporters along with Siskel and Ebert and CNN's Crossfire as inspirations, and that turned up the volume and the temperature of the takes, but seldom went overboard. It was fast, opinionated, funny. The show had genuine journalistic credibility. Kornheiser and Wilbon were both reporters with real relationships and real knowledge, but it had something the sports reporters didn't. It had irony. Kornheiser and Wilbon knew they were doing a bit. That self-awareness was the guardrail that kept the show from going somewhere dangerous. PTI was a phenomenon and is still on the air more than 20 years later, and success created an immediate appetite for more. ESPN gave them more.
We are the show that scores the arguments, and I get to use these cool mute buttons and joysticks, and does the fun ever start?
PTI's immediate success led to Around the Horn, another ESPN sports debate show that billed itself as the show of competitive banter and attempted to score arguments about the daily sports news. Where PTI featured 2 sports reporters going head-to-head, Around the Horn created a battle royale with 4 sports writers from across the country and a famous and very necessary mute button. Around the Horn was PTI on steroids and bath salts. Al Michaels watched it and called it gas bags on parade. With how successful Around the Horn and PTI were, ESPN wanted more shows with more debates, and with that, more voices and more heat. In the early 2000s, ESPN had a morning show called Cold Pizza. It was fine, a traditional morning sports show. News, highlights, interviews, the kind of programming that felt safe and familiar. But buried inside Cold Pizza was a segment, a debate segment featuring Skip Bayless and various co-hosts arguing about the sports topics of the day. Rob Parker was a regular contributor to Cold Pizza.
Consultant comes in. He never watched the show. He's just analyzing the numbers and the ratings and the ship. He says in this meeting, every 15 minutes, the show spikes. Every 15 minutes, the show spikes. He says, what we have to do is figure out what are we doing in those 15 minutes that makes the show spike. No lie, I turn to Skip and I say, that's 1st and 10. That's 1st and 10.
So ESPN did what any rational television operation would do. They asked the obvious question, what if we did just debate? What if the whole show was debate? The answer was First Take.
This felt more like the barbershop, like that I used to go to, and you would come in and people would go back and forth at each other. It's live, it's real, it's not scripted, it's off the cuff.
It started small, ESPN 2, not the main channel, morning slot, not primetime, a show that the network itself wasn't entirely sure what to do with. But it had something Cold Pizza didn't. It had Skip Bayless and eventually Stephen A. Smith. One of the biggest misconceptions about First Take is that it's 2 people in a room before the show trying to make up an argument out of the spot by saying, this is what I'm going to say, and this is what you're going to say, and we're going to fight on television. But that's not quite true. I spoke to Antoine Lewis, the coordinating producer for First Take at its heyday, about what the show was trying to accomplish.
Instead of feeding people points, as a producer, the most important thing is listening to their points and why they believe in their points. And that's the nuance, because it may be that they're saying the exact same thing, but they believe it from a different point of view. Well, there was a topic once where we were asking, who's the best NFL? What's the best NFL team right now? And they both say, hey, it's the New England Patriots. So then you go to a second tier question. Why is it the New England Patriots? And so one of them said Bill Belichick and one of them said Tom Brady. So now the question becomes morphed into who has been more key to the success of the Patriots. And now you have something that is more like what people are seeing on TV. So we really kept drilling down to find out what were the best angles and discussions.
Johnny Manziel will become even bigger in the city of Cleveland than his buddy and business partner LeBron James ever was.
Max almost seems blacker than you, Stephen A. with what he's coming, with his commentary.
Why would you say something so blasphemous? In my heyday, he would need help. Really? He too small.
Are you on drugs?
Donate to charity.
Are you on drugs?
And the whole idea, and Skip talked about this all the time, is if you like somebody, you should be all the way over in that corner. And if you don't like it, you should be all the way over. So there's no gray area. That middle ground is not where you want to be.
Antoine and showrunner Jamie Horowitz poured through the data minute by minute.
I mean, ratings drove everything minute by minute. So there's pressure. In our business, people get fired if the ratings aren't there.
Because no one wants to wait for somebody to have a 15-year career to go revisit and talk about how good they were or how bad they were. Doesn't make any sense. I hear it all the time. We have a show to do tonight. We have a show to do today. We got 3 hours to kill.
And First Take started to snowball to a point where we were up against, on our own network, SportsCenter, and the ratings on an ESPN2 show were beating the ratings on ESPN, the main channel.
The debate format had won. But First Take hadn't found its defining topic yet. The topic that would crystallize everything that First Take was capable of and take it from a show that was successful on ESPN to a legitimate national phenomenon. And that topic was Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow, by every conventional metric of the position, was a significant question mark coming out of Florida. NFL analysts said it, scouts said it, most of the sports media said it. But then Tebow started winning. 1 or 2 passes a game, improbable fourth quarter drives, a team that had no business being in the playoffs, finding themselves in the playoffs. On top of that, Tebow was an outspoken Christian. And the sports media, First Take very much included, could not look away.
Everything was encompassed in one story. Religion, culture, class, race, everything within Tim Tebow. Now, couple that with the fact that despite many people saying he wasn't the best quarterback, he was winning. And they were going to the playoffs. So it was a big sports story.
That's the formula. Like sports radio decades before, Tebow wasn't just a sports story, but entertainment. This time, it was a culture war and miniature fight on a football field. The ratings spiked every time Tebow came up.
Half the people may hate what you're doing, half the people may love what you're doing, but they're watching. So even the people may hate watch. Tim Tebow was one of those things, those stories and people where eyeballs were on him even if you didn't like him, because they were watching to see what he was doing, and it may be hate watching. I can't believe this guy's winning. I can't believe he's doing what he's doing.
First Take had found its perfect subject, and in finding it, it had also found the template for everything that would come after, not just in sports, but everywhere. Tim Tebow was First Take's proof of concept, and the rest of American media was paying very close attention. First Take with Stephen A. and Skip did more for hot takes than any other duo before it. They connected with fans both positively and negatively, but they also figured out something. They figured out the mechanics of making debates on television work.
In the Baptist church, we say, not only can you sing, you can sing. And there's a difference between singing the notes and singing the notes. And Stephen A. knows how to sing the notes. And that's what I think people take away. Skip believed what he said, and people would go, how can you think that? How can you say that about LeBron? But Skip was going to say it, and he was going to keep saying it. And nobody watched more sports or prepared harder than Skip Bayless. But he is the GOAT. He is the one that kind of started this ball rolling, brought on Stephen A., and Stephen A. became what Stephen A. is now.
As First Take thrived and Around the Horn and PTI continued to dominate ESPN afternoons, Fox Sports rolled out their own slate of talking head shows. The Hot Take had taken over all of sports. And we knew it because people started making fun of it. 30 Rock spoofed Around the Horn directly. Jay Farrow impersonated Stephen A. on Saturday Night Live.
Mario Chalmers should not be allowed to have arms to shoot a basketball in the fourth quarter.
The Onion created a fake sports debate show so precise it functioned almost as a documentary. The joke worked because the reality was already indistinguishable from the parody. The hot take became a language, a way for people to argue in public that people could recognize, imitate, make fun of, and participate in all at the same time.
But I'm just not into the idea of you have to play it safe. I think you should be provocative. It's entertainment.
The cycle had been built. The more that the sports networks who aired the games put on people who could analyze and hot take about them, the more it drove fans to want to watch them. And that would drive up live game audiences and ratings. And now that these shows were profitable, it gave the networks another source of revenue. Now, the hot takes would only get hotter and hotter. And that's when it started jumping the shark. Cable news had been watching. The executives at CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC had seen the same thing sports radio had figured out decades earlier. Conflict is the product. Outrage keeps people watching. You don't reach your audience by informing them. You reach them by making them feel something strong enough that they can't turn it off. So they started building their own versions of First Take. Panels of people with strong opinions arguing about the news of the day. The split screen, the crosstalk, the host as referee. The format translated almost perfectly because it was never really about sports to begin with. It was about the most effective architecture for generating and sustaining engagement. Sports was just where it got perfected.
People caught on to what we were doing. People are looking at how can I make a name for myself? How can I make a point resonate? How can I get clickbait? And all of that has come into play because of something that we started.
And then came the moment that showed exactly how far that logic could travel.
Why doesn't he show his birth certificate? I think he probably
have to?
Because I have to and everybody else has to.
In 2011, Donald Trump went on television and started questioning whether Barack Obama was born in the United States.
You are not allowed to be a president if you're not born in this country. He may not have been born in this country.
Trump understood something about the media environment that most politicians didn't yet. Trump understood the hot take. The birther conspiracy was provocative without being immediately disprovable to a casual audience. It touched race and legitimacy and American identity simultaneously. It split people into two passionate camps. Trump had found his Tim Tebow moment. Half the country was furious. Half the country was energized. All of them watching. The political media was now running the exact same playbook as First Take because, like with Tebow, every time Trump's birther conspiracy came up, the ratings spiked, and people, regardless of what they thought, couldn't stop watching. Because the machine doesn't know the difference between a constitutional crisis and a quarterback controversy. All it cares about is that people are watching and money is being made.
It has shocked me to see hot takes become a part of politics because I think there was always a certain feeling of decorum in the way that you presented things, particularly when it came to politics and the way you reacted. But I can see now some of these discussions and debates have just kind of devolved at a certain point. And First Take has played a role in shaping the current political environment because people believe that this is the way to talk and get your point across.
And all of this has led to the golden age of hot takes. Stephen A. Smith reportedly makes close to $40 million a year, more than many of the athletes he's talking about. And that tells you exactly what this system rewards. What cable news did to the hot take, social media did to cable news. Twitter gave everyone a platform. Facebook gave everyone an audience. TikTok gave everyone a production studio in their pocket. The format that required Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith, a production team, and minute-by-minute ratings analysis was now available to anyone with a phone and an opinion.
Right now, we're at a point where social media has made a lot of people being comfortable being gangsters or just be cruel. And so you're seeing a lot more of that. Instead of the celebration, you've seen people tear each other down a lot.
The cruelty that Antoine describes isn't just a bug in the system. It's the feature of the system. Reporting the story made me think a lot about what it was like to be on the inside of this machine myself. Before I started this YouTube channel, I was on ESPN. I sat in the format and felt what those shows demand and what it takes from you. In 2023, Stephen A. Smith made comments about Shohei Ohtani. Stephen A. suggested that Shohei Ohtani could not be the face of baseball because he didn't speak English in press conferences.
I don't think it helps that the number one face is a dude that needs an interpreter so you can understand what the hell he's saying.
The comments landed hard in the Asian American community. They felt reductive. All of this happened as there was a rise in hate crimes toward Asian people in America during the COVID pandemic and Trump's decision to call it the China virus. So when ESPN asked me to come on First Take and talk about it with Stephen A., I said yes. I went in with a sense of purpose about wanting to educate Stephen A. and America on the history of being Asian in this country, contextualizing what Stephen A.'s comments about Shohei Ohtani meant in the moment, and how much of a negative impact that mindset had on not just the Asian American community, but in my eyes, the United States of America. And I said it, I made my points, I pushed back on Stephen A. directly and on the record on live television. Stephen A. apologized and later wrote about how the incident changed his perspective on his career in his memoir. And then I watched what happened next. The clips went everywhere. It was on the front page of ESPN.com and all over social media. And in the coming weeks, days, and months, I started to realize how that moment actually landed. People came up to me and said that I had dunked on Stephen A. They didn't talk about the substance of what I had said or anything around the controversy and why what Stephen A. said was offensive and wrong. They were talking about me getting Stephen A. Smith to apologize, getting the guy who never apologizes to apologize. The format had absorbed what I had said and shot out the most provocative version of that argument. And while the substance was still there if you watch the entire segment, what actually traveled on social media and conversations with other people was the moment of the idea that I had dunked on Stephen A. Smith. But this is the hardest thing to admit about that entire situation and how it changed my life. Even though what I had said in many ways had gotten flattened, it helped my career. It was the most exposure I had ever gotten. It had opened up opportunities for me that I never had before. It eventually led to me getting a raise at work. It, by all metrics of success, was a massive one. But standing in the aftermath of that moment, I started to feel something that I didn't quite expect. I started to feel the pull. I started realizing why giving hot takes is so seductive, because the audience gain is real. The raises that you get at work are real. The type of attention that you get that is often beneficial for your career is real. And I could feel in that moment how easy it would be to start optimizing for it, to start thinking about sports only through the lens of whether or not I can make an opinion that could go viral on social media, that could get more attention, because the money that you do make from hot takes in reality in this industry is more than the money you make from doing straight up traditional reporting and journalism. That's a real fact. And that is why I think hot takes have gotten out of control. The original logic of the format was that sports was the story. The take was in service of something happening on the field. Tebow worked because Tebow was actually winning games. The debate had a real subject. But as the format matured and personalities got bigger, something shifted. The personalities became the story. The beef became the content. You stopped needing a game to discuss because you could just discuss the people doing the discussing. Stephen A. versus LeBron is the clearest example. It's not really about basketball anymore. It's about two enormously powerful figures in Black American public life circling each other, taking shots, responding, escalating. The sport is the backdrop. The beef is the show.
We're spending more time talking about individuals and beefs and disputes than we are about what's actually happening with teams and players and in the news. And a lot of it now, which really pains me, is the fact that it is not fun anymore. A lot of it is, who can I attack? Who can I talk about? Who can I curse out? All of this It is different. When it used to be, there was fun mixed in with the takes as well.
And once the personalities become the content, the format has no natural ceiling on escalation because there's no game result to resolve next, no final score, just the next take, the next response, the next beef. That logic, personality as content, beef as programming, is exactly what political media absorbed. Trump versus whoever. The ongoing soap opera of grievance and response. No policy outcome resolves it, just the next episode. It's the system becoming exactly what it incentivized because people are chasing money and clout. And in a journalism industry where there's fewer and fewer reporting jobs available, people will do anything it takes to make sure that their job and their living is still to watch sports. It's a great job. It's a dream job. Sports radio felt edgy. Then it became the institution. PTI felt like a revelation. Then everyone made a version of it. First Take changed the rules. Then it became the rules. And right now, we're living through another one of those moments. Hot takes are everywhere. In sports, in politics, at the family dinner table, it's inescapable. And if the cycle holds, and if you look at history, it always does hold, there's already something being built on the fringes. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but I do know what it's like to want to build it. And I know I'm not the only one. Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.